Greetings, my name is Nina. Welcome back to my channel. I really love filming bookshelf tour videos. I made one back in June or July 2023. I wanted to wait to that month in 2024. However, my shelves went through a lot of changes and today we're going to go through them. The biggest change is that I put a lot of books away. A lot of books finally moved here. So today is Sunday, March 31st, 2024, and today I'm too tired, so I will not going to go through this one today. I'm going to go through that tomorrow on April 1st. And today let's go through this shelf. As you can see, the major change is that I put away a lot of small books, so there are only 4 rows and a lot of space for the marks, where I keep my bookmarks, pens, and so on. Here's my pens, bookmarks, and simply a random Veni Vidi Vici mug I got in Italy. Now let's go through the top shelf. So here I changed nothing except that I added more books. This is an exclusive classic series. Well, they're just like the Penguin Classics in English, but just in Russian. Here I have unread exclusive classics, and here I have the classics I read. A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess, The Last Summer of Klingsor by Hermann Hesse, The Will to Power by Friedrich Nietzsche, The Plague by Albert Camus, The Road to Serfdom by Friedrich Hayek, The Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe, and The Divine Comedy by Dante. Here nothing changed much. So this is still Beneath the Wheel by Hermann Hesse, one of my favorite books. Lord of the Flies by William Golding. A Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I want to read this again in English. 1984 by George Orwell. I have the English version of that book. Of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck. This one also has the short story Pearl. So this one is Stepford Wives by Ira Levin, Fugue for a Darkening Island by Christopher Priest, The Haunted Hotel by Wilkie Collins, and Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. Okay, some books in English. So on the top I have The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. I read The Yellow Wallpaper, but I have yet to read the other 2 short stories. The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. I'm in the process of reading that book. Foundation by Isaac Asimov. I need to read this year. Masquerade by Terry Pratchett. Best Fairy Tales by Hans Christian Andersen. Grimm's Fairy Tales. And Fear and Trembling by Soren Kierkegaard. Okay, here are books that I have read, except for the top book. This one is N or M by Agatha Christie. These are also the Agatha Christie books. And then there were none, Murder at the Orient Express, and Death on the Nile. The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, the Russian version. The Talisman by Stephen King and Peter Straub. I want to read this in English too. Smith of Wootton Major and Other Stories by J.R.R. Tolkien. On Writing by Stephen King. Easy Reading in English by Ilya Frank. The Antichrist and Ecce Homo by Friedrich Nietzsche. The Power of Words by Simone Weil, and The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, the English version. So I filmed the top. Now let's go to the English bookshelf. So here we have the Harry Potter series by J.K. Rowling. I'm currently reading The Goblet of Fire, and I have this really nice Luna Lovegood bookmark. Earthsea by Ursula K. Le Guin. This one has the first 4 books. The Lottery and Other Stories by Shirley Jackson. I started reading them last night and I read the first 2, The Intoxicated and The Demon Lover. I really liked The Intoxicated. The Shining by Stephen King. So I read The Shining in Russian and I'm glad I have the English version. Vicious by V.E. Schwab. Did not expect to buy this, but I did. The House in the Silurian Sea by T.J. Klune. I want to read this as fast as possible. The Courage to be Disliked by Ishiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga. I'm in the process of reading this book. I have read half of it. And then you have Tolkien stuff. So you have The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings in 3 parts, The Fall of Arthur, and then you have the 3 separate stories from the Silmarillion, Beren and Luthien, The Children of Húrin, and The Fall of Gondolin. I am considering buying the Silmarillion in English, but I'm afraid of that book. It's scary to read even in Russian. Just imagine how hard it's going to be for me in English. And finally, the last book is on fairy stories. This is a great essay on why we need escapism. I also used to have on the shelves Unfinished Tales of Númenor and Middle-earth and The Letters of Tolkien. However, I want to get rid of those books because I want to replace the editions. The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. I read it at the beginning of the year and it's one of my favorite books now. The Book Thief by Markus Zusak. Beyond the Wand, The Magic and Mayhem of Growing Up a Wizard by Tom Felton. A History of Heavy Metal by Andrew O'Neill, one of my favorite books. And it's a great informative book on heavy metal genre as a whole. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I borrowed the book, read it last year, and I wanted my own copy ever since, and I got it. Same with Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Uncommon People, The Rise and Fall of the Rock Stars by David Hepford. Humankind, A Hopeful History by Rutger Bregman. I Was Born for This by Alice Oseman. I read this recently and I loved it. Bohemian Rhapsody, The Definitive Biography of Freddie Mercury by Leslie Ann Jones. The Inheritance Games by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. And The Crucible by Arthur Miller. As you can see, I have a mini rainbow shelf, however this is going to change sooner or later, starting with The Fellowship of the Ring. All the books towards the end, towards The Crucible, are red. And here comes the most epic shelf, the most wholesome and awesome shelf, because it has all the coolest fantasy over here, well, except for one series, that's sci-fi, but still. The Neverending Story by Mikhail Ende, amazing. Chronicles of Narnia series by C.S. Lewis. The Kingkiller Chronicles series by Patrick Rothfuss, with the second book being split into 2 parts. And here we have The Little Unicorn, or now as I call it, Lady Amalthea. Well, Lady Amalthea is a character from The Last Unicorn. If you read the book, you know. Then we have the first 4 Wheel of Time books by Robert Jordan. And then we have this amazing album, Imaginations from the Other Side by Blind Guardian. This definitely belongs here. Next comes the entire Dune series by Frank Herbert in 2 books. Then we have this amazing Three-Eyed Raven from Game of Thrones. And speaking of Game of Thrones, here we have the entire A Song of Ice and Fire series by George R. R. Martin, with the 5th book, The Dance with Dragons, being split into 2 parts. And yeah, and this is the site. This contains information on the Three-Eyed Raven. This came along in the box with the Three-Eyed Raven. Oh, and we have this teddy bear with the little girl hugging him. And this art book with this painting called Vsadnica from Tretyakov Gallery. Oh, look, it's called Lady on the Horse. This is by K.P. Brulov. Yeah, my aunt got me this in Tretyakov Gallery, and it's just a sketchbook, art book, to be honest, sorry. I don't write anything in here, this is just a trophy, I love it. And then we have all the Stormlight Archive books that are released as for March 2024. With books 3 and 4 being split into 2 parts. Okay, let's go to the lower shelf. So here we have this new edition of The Secret Garden, 1984 by George Orwell, the English version. Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. I finally started reading this book and I'm on the page 157. I'm slowly reading this. And Homo Deus by Yuval Noah Harari, A Brief History of Tomorrow. I don't know when I'm going to start it. And then starting with different seasons, with ending with Revival. All of these are Stephen King books. So you have here different seasons. Misery, This Little Owl with the student's hat and the books. 11/22/63, Dreamcatcher, Carrie, The Shining in Russian, This Little Colosseum Figure I Got Myself in Rome, It, The Long Walk and the Running Man in 1 book, The Dead Zone, Needful Things, This Little Ducky, Joyland, Full Dark No Stars, and Revival. And then we have my Tolkien stuff in Russian. The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, and The Silmarillion. Oh yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Let's move on. And then we have some big books over here. And this little McDonald's car I got when I was little, and I keep it to this day. I love it. Oh, look over here. Here. So here we have Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card, one of my favorite books. Coraline by Neil Gaiman. I Am Ozzy by Ozzy Osbourne, one of my favorites. And Tonight, Metallica, the biography by Mick Wall. Come As You Are, A History of Nirvana by Michael Azerrad. And the First Law trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. Okay, and now there comes the hardest shelves. I remember in my previous video I grabbed a random stick I found, and that turned out to be a German flag, and I pointed out the books with it. Now I'm going to use this Hufflepuff pen one of my childhood friends got me from New York. So I have over here a little backpack my friend got me for my birthday, and I keep there. Let me show you what do I keep here. Well, nothing special, just a few hair clips, a bouncing ball, and this lip balm. So over here I have King Arthur and His Knights of the Round Table by Roger Lancelin Green. So this is Sapiens by Yuval Noah Harari, A Brief History of Humankind. The Kingkiller Chronicles series by Patrick Rothfuss in English. My 3 Penguin Classics books, so these 2 are by John Milton, this is Areopagitica and Other Writings, and The Paradise Lost. And this is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. So this is a cube I got myself in Vatican City, as a reminder that I got lost there, and in my Italy vlog you can see how this works. A Fire Upon the Deep by Werner Winch, German Jokes by Ilya Frank, Short Stories in German by, I keep forgetting the author's names. So this is the book in Georgian here. This is Me, Grandma, Iliko and Ilarioni by Nodar Dombadze. In case you are wondering, the English translation of this book exists. The Book Thief by Marcos Zusak in Russian. Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows in Russian. I lost the first 6 Harry Potter books in Russian, and I only have the 7th one, and yeah. So this is the small dolphin and the starfish I got in Kobuleti, Georgia. And this is the box where the three-eyed raven came from. And when I did some bookshelf reorganization, I put all the Witcher books by Andrzej Sapkowski down. Well, because I'm not that drawn to them at the moment. Maybe they will go up someday, but not right now. Well, I mean, I know there are 7 books, well, the main series, and I only have the first 6, and I haven't read the 6th one. I'm not interested at the moment. So this is Equal Rights by Terry Pratchett. 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. The Martian by Andy Weir. The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. Faust by Johann Wolfgang Goethe. So over there we have the Iliad by Homer. So this small book is the Zwergenese by Wilhelm Hauff in German. Next we have the 2 books by George R. R. Martin, Fever Dream and The Tough Voyaging. The Scott Pilgrim graphic novels, all 6 of them by Brian Lee O'Malley. So this is The Journey to the Valley of the Trolls by Malin Falk. This is the first graphic novel in the Northern Lights series, and Women in Battle by 2 Norwegian authors, Marta Breen and Jen Udal. Sorry, I did not pronounce that right. And finally, the most difficult shelf of them all. I actually hate this shelf right now. If you have seen my previous bookshelf tour videos, you know why I hate this place. So over here I have Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Briggs, the first 3 books. Martin Eden by Jack London. Land of Oz by L. Frank Baum in both English and Russian. Pet Cemetery by Stephen King. The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. The Queen's Gambit by Walter Tevis. Anxious People by Frederick Backman. The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, The Diary of a Wimpy Kid by Jeff Kinney, The Shortest History of Germany by James Hawes, the biography of BBC's Sherlock, I don't remember the full title right now, 21 Lessons for 21st Century by Yuval Noah Harari, When Giants Walk the Earth by Mick Wall, biography of Led Zeppelin, The Amazing Morris and His Educated Rodents by Terry Pratchett, His Dark Materials by Philip Pullman, and The Ikabog by J.K. Rowling. Okay, so on this shelf I try not to keep too many books. If I do, I put them away because I really cannot fathom this shelf. It's very overwhelming and tiresome. Okay, I have gone through these shelves, and tomorrow I'm going to continue. Now I'm off. Okay, so here's this place where I keep more books, and yes, you can see them too, lots of books. Over here I keep my random diaries. Speaking of diaries and journals, I have a separate video on my journals, you can check it out. So let's check the books, and I will have to take out some of these. Okay, over here I actually have 3 books. You can see only 2, but there's 3. It's Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. I did not finish the 3rd one, read the first 2, and I think I'm going to get rid of these books. I'm not excited about them. Next we have Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis. This volume contains the first 4 books. I didn't find the volume that contains the last 3. Got myself the full volume and only found the said book after I bought the full volume, yeah. So this is Guards by Terry Pratchett. The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. Fun fact, I considered getting rid of this book, but then I decided to keep it. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams, all 5 books in 2 volumes. This one contains first 2, this one contains books 3, 4 and 5. The Maze Runner Trilogy by James Dashner. The Gravity Falls graphic novels. This is basically a novelization of the first 9 episodes of Gravity Falls. I considered getting rid of them, but then I decided to keep them. They're pretty good. Even though it's still better to revisit the story by watching a TV show, of course. The Letters of Tolkien, I want to replace this book. No Logo by Naomi Klein. This Changes Everything by Naomi Klein. And The Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. So back over here up to this book, I have the Jacqueline Wilson books. I will go through them later. So this is Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. I want to replace this edition. Just Kids by Patti Smith in Georgian. I need the English version. Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones in Georgian. I'm keeping this book because I really like this edition. Fahrenheit 451 in Georgian. This cover is very beautiful. Coraline by Neil Gaiman in Georgian. No is Not Enough by Naomi Klein. The Dispossessed by Ursula K. Le Guin. Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. I need to replace this edition, the English one. Lizzie's Story by Stephen King. Cujo and Cycle of the Werewolf by Stephen King. Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. Shaggy Dog English. This is a book of jokes in English, published in Poland. I took this from my English tutor. O Pipu Human Suomea, you learn to speak Finnish. Yeah, one day I will go back to this book. And more books over here. Yeah, I need to take these out and show them everything separately. Aphorisms on Love and Hate by Friedrich Nietzsche. Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. The Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. The Freedom to be Free by Hannah Arendt. By the Pricking of My Thumbs by Agatha Christie. The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. A collection of short sci-fi stories by Arthur Clarke. Orphans of the Sky by Robert Heinlein. And a collection of short stories by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. These are stories about Sherlock Holmes. Now let's go to my Penguin Readers collection. Misery by Stephen King. I made a TikTok comparing the first page of this book and the original book. And as I noticed, a lot of people really like this TikTok that I later posted on YouTube. It continues getting views. I hope you really like that TikTok. The Chamber by John Grisham, I never read it. A Time to Kill by John Grisham, I think I haven't read it either. The Prisoner of Zenda by Anthony Hope, I haven't finished this. However, I lent it to my friend and she did. My Family and Other Animals by Gerald Durrell. I actually loved this book, and to this day when I look at this, it brings me a lot of fun memories. I think I should read the original book. This was really fun. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. Maybe I should read the original book too. The Promise by R.L. Scott Buchloish. Sorry, I mispronounced this. However, this was all Macmillan's readers, not Penguin readers. Madame Doubtfire by Anne Fine. Only after I bought this book I realized that the infamous film Mrs. Doubtfire is a book adaptation. Matilda by Roald Dahl. When I was still living in Moscow, I had the full Russian version. I mean that full version that was translated into Russian, and I would love to have myself the English version, the full one. I really liked the book and I liked the film a lot, even though it was kinda scary. So this is the novelization of Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest. Once I saw it, I wanted it. I knew I wanted it. Don't be surprised, these books look very used because they are. I use them a lot and I also let other people read these books. Dangerous Game by William Harris. Never finished this. The Man with the Two Shadows and Other Ghost Stories by Thomas Hood and others. So I asked my aunt to bring me a Penguin Readers and she brought me this. A Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. I need to get myself the full version of this book. The Lady in the Lake by Raymond Chandler. I really liked this detective story. The novelization of The Mummy Returns. I also had the Penguin Readers of the first film, The Mummy, but I lost it unfortunately. I actually have a lot of Penguin Readers that eventually got lost. I really loved this film. Unpopular opinion here, I preferred the second film to the first one. The Ghost of Jenny Castle by John Escott. I really liked this a lot. The Railway Children by E. Nesbit. Oh, the novelization of one of my all-time favorite films, E.T. the Extraterrestrial. I just love the cover, it's very, very beautiful. So, Jumanji. One fact that I found out about this film only recently is that this is actually an adaptation of a small game book. Yes, Jumanji, one of your favorite films, is a screen adaptation of a game book. And this is the small novelization. And also another fact that I came to read this novelization before I watched the actual film, and the actual film is brilliant. And finally, Babe, the Sheep Pig by Dick King Smith. I read this before I watched the film, however, I remember that I watched the second film, Babe, Pig in the Big City, or however it was called, before I came across the first one, and of course this novelization. I do actually have a soft spot for that film. I haven't shown you the books separation by the level, so these books are all level 2. Fun fact, when I was buying all these books, I actually did not care about the level. I only cared about if the story was good. Yes, I considered myself a professional in English, so I thought I could read any story I like. These are all level 3. I have 9 books. So these two are level 5. And these are level 6. These books do mean a lot to me. This is my teenage years when I was still learning English. And yeah, I used to collect these. I used to have more of these. Yeah, it's so sad that I lost them. They used to be very cheap back in the day. So more books. So this is David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. I didn't finish this book, I need to start again. The Hound of Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I want a new edition of this book, however I'm keeping this because my mom gifted this book to me. I remember the time when I struggled to read this. Now it's not going to be a problem, however I want a new edition of this book. A Game of Thrones by George R. R. Martin. So I thought I would reread this book in 2023, however I decided that if I want to reread A Song of Ice and Fire, I'm going to read my the Russian versions that I have on my shelves that you have seen. And this is simply a trophy. Favorite Dream by George R.R. Martin. Yeah, this is butchered. Yeah, because Pepsi was accidentally split on this book. And yeah, I want you to look what I did to this book, even without the Pepsi. You know, when now I look at these words, well, some of them I do remember right now. I memorized them. It isn't going to be hard for me to read this book in English. However, I would love to have myself a new edition, and this one simply I have for collection. And then The Venant by Agatha Christie. I got myself this book in Hungary. This is a trophy book. And unpopular opinion, the Russian translation of this book was better. The Secret Garden by Frances Hodgson Burnett. I don't really need this edition anymore. I've got myself the new edition. You have seen it on the bookshelf. And yeah, I remember those days when I struggled to read this book. I still remember when back in 2014, I was sitting in the kitchen trying to read this book while translating the words. It was awful. Now it isn't going to be a problem. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl. So I'm keeping this copy because it holds on so many memories for me. When I look at this book, I remember so much. When I was reading the Georgian version in 2011, I read the Russian version back in 2005 after I watched the film. Yeah, I remember when I entered the DVD store, the DVD release of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and I got it, and I regretted that I did not get to see that film in the theater. I loved it and I really liked the book. And I have this book, this fantasy book by a newcomer author. You should read this book. The author is very good. I have a link to her book on Amazon. The Kindle version, of course. More books. Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. Fathers and Children by Ivan Turgenev, for some reason translated into English as Fathers and Sons. Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. A Young Doctor's Notebook by Mikhail Bulgakov. You've probably heard of the mini-series adaptation of this book starring Daniel Radcliffe and John Hamm. Yeah, I watched that series after I read the book. I actually would like to read this book one day. I mean, read again. And The Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein. I really like the cover of this book. So the next pile, the exclusive classics. This one is Politics by Aristotle, The Prince by Niccolo Machiavelli, The Art of War by Sun Tzu, So Spoke Zarathustra by Friedrich Nietzsche, Damien by Hermann Hesse, Gertrude by Hermann Hesse, Evgeny Petrov and Ilya Ilf, 12 Chairs, Zbigniew Brzezinski, The Great Chessboard, The World Order by Henry Kissinger, and The State by Plato. So more books. So here we have some Agatha Christie novels. This is Murder at the Vicarage, Hickory Dickory Dock, and Death Comes at the End. Unfinished Tales of Numenor and Middle-earth by J.R. Tolkien, which I want to replace because this edition is quite small. When I bought this, I did not know better. I mean, there were different editions, the bigger ones, and I want this replaced. So here we have two Neil Gaiman novels. Here we have The Graveyard Book and American Gods. Frederick Backman, Grandma Asked to Stay That She's Sorry. Everything is Illuminated by Jonathan Safran Foer. When I look at this cover, I can never forget that everyone, literally everyone who have seen this book from me, I mean that everyone that I showed to this book, this cover, everyone thought that this was Harry Potter. So here we have Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, Metaphysics by Aristotle, Ethics by Aristotle, and The Criticism of Pure Reason by Immanuel Kant. One day I will go through these philosophy books. And finally, the last pile. These are all the Jacqueline Wilson novels. Let's go through them. Keep in mind that these books look very worn out and used, well, because that's what I did. I used them, and I also let other kids read them. So this coverless book is Diamond Girls. You can see that I really liked this book, but I still keep it. So this is Midnight. So this is Tracy Beaker's diary, and it also has the Dare game. So this is Best Friends, Double Act, Bad Girls, Secrets. Finally we have the Girls series. Oh, we also have another book over here. So this one is Vicky Angel. I have completely forgotten about this book, and you can see that this one looks relatively better than the others, and that's because this is my least favorite Jacqueline Wilson book. I never liked this because I thought it was very dark and very cringy and very scary. Fun fact, I originally did not want to buy myself the girls series because I thought they were for older girls. They were too cool, they were very terrifying. But then when I ran out of Jacqueline Wilson books, and spoiler, I had more of them, I bought these, and yeah. And that's all. These were all the books. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. See you next time. Goodbye.